Okay, windshield's out. I'm just vacuuming out all the glass right now. I'm gonna get 99% of it that I can see, and then I'll do a final cleanup once I get done with body work, because I know once I drop the headliner, something's gonna fall out of that. I'm gonna try to just drop the front of it and vacuum out the front tray here. Just catching all of it. There's some down in there. I just can't get it down yet without taking the trim out of the car. I got the A-pillars off, and these are a one-time clip. I was able to get this one off right here at the top without having to use the clip, but I'm probably going to replace it anyway just because I probably can't get it back in. And this clip here, you actually have to hammer it in towards the car, and then it'll come out of the hole. It's a one-time use. I got to get at least 2 of those, and there's 2 in the back at the C-pillars, but I may not have to take that out if I can just drop the headliner enough to do the work, or I'll just slip it out of the C-pillar and push it back in there. So I've got to order at least 2 of those. I'm going to finish up getting the glass off the other side of the dash and the floor and seat on the other side. Then I'll start working on the body. But I'm going to go ahead and cut some more of this urethane off, just enough to get the glass off the edge there, so I don't cut myself while I'm working on this. I really just need to lift this part of the roof up just a little bit with the porta power. And if I had a way to lift it from up top there, I could pull it. Not have to drop the headliner, but I don't really have a good way of doing that. We'll go ahead and finish cleaning up, and I'll come back when I'm ready to do the body work. Okay, headliner's out. Took about maybe 30-45 minutes. I did a little bit of it the other day and finished it up tonight. Got it over here on the windshield. This is the windshield under here. I'm keeping it protected. This is the headliner. This is the front of the headliner. Sunroof, rear. It's got some clips back here in the back. Snap it into the rear beam. Grab handles. Hooks for the visors themselves, and then the upper console there. Had to drop down. Had to take these out. They have the one-time clip in them. These A-pillar covers drop down pull this piece back and drop down the B-pillar cover to get the headliner out of that. And back there in the back, I was able to slide it out of the C-pillar cover and not have to push in that one-time use clip that was the same as the one that goes in this hole. So I'm not gonna have to buy but 2 clips. I may buy one extra just in case I need one. If I have to redo one for some reason, pull it back off. I've got the seat and dash protected over here, so I can start rolling this edge up. You can see that there's a little bit of a low spot here where that kink is, and then it rolled down this lip just because this was hanging off the edge past this reinforcement. So we're going to roll that up flat. Should be fairly symmetric to the other side, so I'm going to match that, get this back out flat. I'd like to leave the original urethane bead here if I can. If not, I'll have to cut a section of it out and then epoxy that flange, give it something to stick to. But first thing I'm going to do is roll this flange up so that I can push against the bottom of this whole assembly. And once this is out, I can start the push. I'll have to move this and put the ram down against the floor there, and put a big block of wood there to spread the load out, and probably a piece of plywood along the floorboard. I'm just going to push up over here where it's in this low spot and spread the load out with a probably 6-inch 2x4 or something like that. And then push this up until I get the right arc in it, until it looks close, and then I'll lay the windshield in eventually and see how close we are. But a lot of this will come out whenever I get the thing pushed up. All right, I've got the battery disconnected so I could disconnect the seat and not set any airbag codes. Got it unbolted and unplugged. I don't need to take the seat completely out. I'm just leaning it back so that I can access this rail here for the seat. So I've got a really stiff point to push against. I'm going to pull this vent over, this ductwork over just a little bit. I'm going to use this end of the brace. I'm going to press up, straight up onto the roof to where I need to be. And I also needed to pull the seat out to vacuum all the rest of the glass over here and all under the seat, so I can rock the seat forward and back to be able to vacuum all the glass out. But that was just kind of a secondary reason to have it out. It doesn't need to come out of the car. It could, but there's really no need to take it out, and that way I don't risk having it sitting around getting damaged. So I'll go ahead and get the roof pressed up, and when I get done with all this repair work, I'll vacuum it out again in case any more glass falls. I'm gonna go ahead and get set up for the push now. All right, here's my setup. Got a block of wood on that brace. Got a couple extensions on the ram. Block of wood up here. I just put some light pressure on it just to get the arc back in it. And I tapped around the outside of the dent, and 80% of that area is probably straight now around this main dent. Got that one over there. Needs to be fixed, but I'm gonna focus on this and then move over that way. All right, I think I've got it where it needs to stay. I'm just gonna have to roll this lip up just a little bit more, but I checked the level of the car on the back edge of the hood here, where I can go across, span across 2 points along the middle, and it's level. The car is level. So I've got 2 points here that are spanning across about where it was bent, a little past it, and this area in here is level now. So I'm just going to roll this lip out. This outer layer here is pretty thin, so it bent around the inner layer, but it also bent this inner layer a little, this heavy layer here. So I'm just going to roll that back up flat to get the same angle as that side over there. Then I'll start grinding some paint out of this, and I'm going to put some pins along this edge so I can just lift that edge by itself and then start working the dent out. Now I've got most of it tapped out. You can see where I was tapping around this, where I scratched it. Knocked the crown down, and most all this came out. It's just the dent and that one over there. And that one there I might be able to get to from behind the back side if I just run the sunroof back, which I have to do anyway to paint it. So I'm gonna go ahead and work this lip out, make sure I've got everything at the right angle, and then start the body work. All right, I've got a few pins here. I think I've got about 7 or 8 pins on this. I'm going to start pulling from the outside towards the center. I'm trying to lift that edge up, get that little bit of a low spot off the corner, and right inside here where it kinked this out, I'll be able to tap that in. As soon as I get some pressure upward on it, I can tap that little ridge in, that'll hold it up. And after I get that done, I can actually access through this hole right here. I can push out there and there on the damage if I need to. So I may be able to not use as many studs if I can push it out, but I'm going to start pulling on this, and I'll work my way around the dent towards the center. Okay, I'm going to start pulling. You'll see how it reacts. If I start on the ends, it's pretty tight, so I may have to just go ahead and grab a few in the middle and start lifting that way. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to grab some in the center together and get the middle 3. See how that does. I may have to get something to spread the load out here. I don't want to bend this back here for sure. Yeah, let me get a board, put it back there. All right, that's spreading the load out a little bit better. If that won't do it, I can't lift with that, then I'll have to just get the slide hammer and do it with an impact. I think it's getting there, but I'm gonna have to try the slide hammer first. I actually went ahead and tried it this direction so I could use this stiff part of the roof to try against. And it seems to have worked. I'm still gonna have to pull it up a little bit more, maybe with the slide hammer, but I need to get it pulled up and get it tight and come in with, probably gonna have to use this chisel end of this hammer to get past the urethane bead and tap that ridge down, but I'm gonna try that now. That'll lift this corner just a little bit. I'm just trying to find where that ridge is. It's right there in the center, where the center pin is. I'm holding up some pressure on the stud buddy. I'm just gonna tap that ridge down. While I pull up on this, it'll raise this as I push the kink out. That's really about it. I'm not worried about scratching the paint down here. I'm going to have to prime and paint that anyway. I'm almost there. I'm going to do a little bit more pulling. If I can't get it all with the stud buddy, I'm just going to pull it with the slide hammer and pop it a little bit. But I don't want to pull the studs off, so trying to avoid that. Alright guys, we just had a power outage a few hours ago from a storm, but I went ahead and got some work lights out, and I've got the FiberTech purple filler on there. It's been on there about 3 or 4 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and get the grater blade and plane it down just a little bit so it's not so hard to sand later. This stuff gets rock hard. I'm going to do that today, or that'll be all I can do today, is get this plane down just a little bit, and then I'll get some regular filler to go on the top of that. But it's ready to go, just needs to be filled and just finished with regular body filler and primed. I got a few more places that need some filler once I get that out, but it's ready to go. All right, I worked down that FiberTech filler that I put on there, and I opened up the rest of the metal so I can just wipe the whole area. There's a low spot right up here that I worked up as much as I could, and the rest of it's just going to be just a final finish coat of the filler. If I need to add any later, I will, but I'm going to try to just put one more layer and block it out flat and be done. All right, I got to work pretty quickly here. I'm going to try to cover this whole area without it setting up on me. I've got the front edge taped off so I don't get any down near the urethane seal, or down in that area where I can't really get it out too easily. Like I said, there's a low area right there, but I'm going to focus on getting filler that I mixed up here on the actual repair area. If I need to add some up there, I will. I'm not going to worry about it until I get done with this spot here. I need to be able to spread it in one flat surface here. I'm going to get all this back out of here and add that back to the middle. Build this up. I'll most likely need another layer just because I'll need to finish it out. I'll probably cut through somewhere to bare metal. I would imagine with this big of an area you just about can't get away with, especially having a curve in it like this. Should be the last pass here. Get off the paint, because I know if I'm on the paint with the filler, I know I've gone too far with it, since I only sanded to where I needed the filler. I'm going to pull this tape off while this is still wet. I got some up there, hopefully that's enough. And pull this off the edge while the filler's wet. And I'll be back to sand that in probably 15 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and start working on some other stuff while I'm waiting on that. All right guys, I've got this thing ready to prime. I just need to take my feather edges out with 400 a little bit for the primer to stick. I'm gonna prime the whole front edge of the roof here, and also hit this with epoxy where this lip rolled over. The paint broke along here, brushed it out. I'm just gonna scuff the front half here to get some epoxy, and I'll sand all the way down into this edge next to the urethane bead. I was able to save this bead, so he'll come back and he'll cut this glass technician that I use will cut this off about 1 millimeter up from the flange, and he'll be able to rebond to that bead there, and I won't have to replace it. If I cut it out of there, I would really need to sand this in here, and he'd have to prime it and replace the bead, but now he can just go around and do a normal job. I'm gonna get the thing covered up here with some plastic, and I'll be priming back to about right here, all the way over, and then about the same over there. I can probably stop more at the corner on that side, but I got to bring this around just a little bit to be able to feather it back and not expose this feather edge. I'm going to get it sanded out now, then I get it masked off and prime it. I've got my epoxy sitting over there getting ready to go. All right, ready for epoxy. I'm going to put some on here and wait about an hour, or maybe even 45 minutes, depends on how warm it gets out here. and we'll put the high build on it. Okay, we're ready to paint here. Got everything blocked out nice and flat and 400 grit, and then ran the DA around the edges to feather it in, and then finished it off with red Scotch-Brite down in here. I'm actually going to paint the entire flange. I've got the urethane bead masked off. You can paint straight over it, but I like to keep it a little bit clean instead of painting right over it. I don't want the glass technician to come in and cut the bead off and the paint flake off of that, since he's going to come in probably the next day and that stick in the paint. So I'm just going to cover it up for him. Then I don't have to worry about that. This is all 1000 grit and a little bit of red Scotch-Brite just to finish it off. Got the sunroof slid back into the roof. So as soon as this is painted, I'm going to cut open this area, slide the headliner in, and just temporarily attach it up so it's not resting on the seats to leave any impressions in it or anything. And then I'll come back and put antenna back here in this hole once the paint's hardened. But I don't want the headliner to be outside of the car in case the glass tech comes by while I'm at work. He'd have to set it in the car, but he's not going to put it inside and attach it to the roof. So I don't want him to have to leave it in there while I'm gone, sitting on the seats, to put any kind of an impression in the headliner. So I'm going to put it in myself and temporarily attach it. So that way when he gets here, windshield can go in. Then I can come in if I have to, drop the back of it down, put the antenna in, and not have to worry about any of that. You'll try to get this painted tomorrow afternoon. Let it sit for probably an hour or so, then pull the mask and plastic off here and get the headliner in it. Go from there. All right, it's time for the adhesion promoter. I'm going to put that over the entire surface just to make sure I've got everything covered with it and everything sticks. All right, we're going to go ahead and get the base coat mixed up, and by the time I've got it ready, then it'll be ready to put on this. All right, base coat's ready to go. I'm just going to focus on covering up the primer, and then we're going to blend along the sides of the sunroof once I get to that point. Alright, I'm going to let that sit for about 5 minutes or so to let it flash off. I've got a medium temp reducer for 75 degrees in here. It's right at 75, so that should take about 5 minutes or so, then I'll let the second coat extend past that one just a little bit. Alright, it's time for clear. I'm going to show you the first coat, then I'll be back after it's finished. Alright, I went ahead and pulled the plastic off, had to move the car over. It's been sitting there for maybe 4 hours or so. Got a few little dust nibs I'll take out, but it's nothing that's abnormal, just typical dust. And I'll leave the antenna off the back until I get it buffed out. Then I'll put that in and then finish up the headliner. I've got to be able to bolt that thing in, connect it and put the nut on it before the headliner goes in. I mostly close the sunroof just to keep anything from settling in the car or falling in there. It's still not contacting the paint edges though, so it won't stick. I'm going to focus on getting the headliner back in it and getting all the trim back in the car that I can while I wait on the glass tech to come in and bond the windshield.